G'day, this is Simon at South OC Cars and Coffee. I'm with Rick, who's been a previous Car of the Week winner, with a car of the same model and year, but this one's a little bit different. What is this one, mate?
This was a 1963 Grand Sport Corvette, of which they only originally built 5. And so this is a replica of those as accurately as possible. It has the same tubular frame as the original 5. Everything has been done to keep it just like the original 5 cars.
It really does look like the real deal. Hey, check this thing out. It's a very, very special car. Rick, you pulled in this morning. I had people saying to me, make sure to go and check out that Corvette. It is an absolutely standout car. Now, you mentioned that they only built a handful of these back in the day in 63. This was obviously started its life as a 63 Corvette, although we're going to talk about one of the things that's missing as a 63.
Right, exactly.
But when was this car built into what it is today?
It was built into one of these in the last 10 years. It's an exact replica of one of the original 5 Grand Sport serial number 2, and it has a full tubular frame, and it weighs 1,000 pounds less than a stock 63 Corvette, which was the whole point, since they would be racing against Cobras, which weighed about 2,000 pounds.
Where did they get the weight from? What did they do to, was it the chassis, going to a tubular chassis that got the weight out?
Exactly. It just has this tubular frame, and all the stuff that's not necessary is gone. And so it drops the weight by almost 1,000 pounds, which made it then competitive against the Ford Cobras,
yep,
which weighed about 2,000 pounds. And it has all these features on it because they tried to be as aerodynamic as possible.
Yep.
These are scoops that bring air to the rear brakes.
Interesting.
And instead of putting fluid in the master cylinder,
yep,
they didn't want to have to open the hood, so they made that little door, and they put the master cylinder here,
well,
this door.
So that's where you get to the master cylinder.
Exactly.
Incredible.
And
then while we're pointing that direction too, let's talk about those. We're going to look under the hood in a minute.
Yes.
But this has quad Webers on it, so that's basically air induction straight into those side drives.
It has two functions. The Grand Sport Corvettes were so fast and so light, they wanted to fly. I actually have pictures at home of one of the original Grand Sports, all 4 wheels off the ground.
My goodness.
They was because of aerodynamics. So the hood functions as an escape for the Webers, but also the car was trapping so much air underneath that it was wanting to fly. So you have a lot of vents like that. And then for racing, when it raced at Nassau in 1963, they found that the differentials were overheating. This is a differential cooler.
Interesting. I thought that. So I've seen those on the other replicas before, and always thought they were air cooled off the engine. And I thought, what a long way to run the lines from the front to the back like that. I never realised that's for the differential.
These lines run to the differential and pump through this radiator, which is under here, which cools the fluid. And of course, in order to qualify to race at Le Mans around the world, they had to carry a spare. So they were forced into putting a trunk in the back to carry.
Of course. So this physically has a trunk.
Yes.
Whereas you don't see a trunk on these Corvettes in this era.
You don't see that on my 63 that I have at home. There's no trunk, and it had to be there functionally to race in FIA, the institution that sponsors all these races around the world, Le Mans, wherever. And so it had to have a spare tire, so that's why it has a trunk. The holes in the back, by the way.
Yep, I've seen those.
When I tell you that the car wanted to fly, all these things were done to let air out.
So that's basically to let air out of the car and ensure that when it comes to underneath, it's not building up air in there.
Exactly. So the air was being trapped, and so they did all these, what they felt were real aerodynamic things. In fact, you see how the grab for the door handle is kind of sunken?
Yep.
Believe it or not, that was their attempt in 1963 to make the car as aerodynamic as possible.
Yeah, yeah.
So they sunk the doorknobs in, and guess what? The doorknobs were from a Chevrolet pickup truck in 1963.
That is crazy.
So most people don't know these funny little facts.
Now
about
another
the
thing I've just picked while we're standing here, fuel filler
Yes.
in the B pillar.
Yes.
That fuel filler would normally have been back here.
Yes.
But of course it can't because two reasons. It's got a trunk. And secondly, you had that differential air
Exactly.
cooler. Now the other thing I want to point out that was one of the things we first noticed. We know this is a 63 because it has a spine. See that
Yeah.
spine down the middle, and it also continues down here. Well, originally that would have had the split window like we saw on all the 63s, like your other 63. But of course on this, somebody got rid of that, and that was a trend that happened later on, or did the person building this to look like the race car do that? When did that happen?
There was a big controversy at General Motors at the time. Bill Mitchell was the head of styling at General Motors. He also was a deep sea fisherman. So he was fascinated with the shape of pictures, and that's why a lot of the Corvette special cars were called sharks and those kinds of things.
Yep.
In his office he had a big stuffed fish on the wall, and he wanted that spine down the back. That's why the 63 had a spine down
Yep.
the back, because of fish. When they were building the Grand Sports, then there was an argument between Bill Mitchell, who wanted that split, and Zora Duntov, who was the design engineer for Grand Sport and Corvette. He didn't want that split there because, it made it a bit awkward for vision,
Yep.
for looking out the back. So they had this fight going on for a long time. Finally, the president of General Motors said, okay, here's how we're going to solve it. We're going to put a split on 63 Corvettes only. After that, there won't be a split. But for the Grand Sports, we'll eliminate it.
Let's now. I just want to look at the interior. So this has got more modern gauges added to it than what it would have, I guess, had originally. But full race bone gauges. It's got the full harnesses in there as well.
Yes.
And is this still running a Muncie gearbox in it?
Yes.
So and with this, were they running like a close ratio or a
This
rock
is-
crusher or a?
This was, because the cars were so early, they didn't have things like rock crushers, but so it is a Muncie
Yep.
4-speed close ratio transmission, and so it shifts like a dream. It's like the Muncies that were in the early Corvettes.
Is it a Hurst shifter?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the underside of that is Hurst.
Yep. Well, let's have a look under the hood because that's pretty special under there as well. There's the workhorse right there, small block Chev.
Yep.
Now, the 63, like your other car, what size engine is that a 327 in that?
My 63 is a 327, but the Grand Sports were 377 cubic inches,
Interesting.
which is like a bored and stroked 350.
Yep.
And of course, they ran exotic intake systems. This is a Weber setup, just like a Ferrari.
Yep. Side drafts.
And these are 45 DCOEs, and the actual Grand Sports ran even bigger ones
Yep.
than this. But these are 45s, and one of the most famous engine builders back in the time was Traco. Traco built race engines for everybody.
Interesting.
Trans Am cars, Mark Donahue in his Camaro, and he won 8 out of 10 races. They were all built by Traco.
Interesting. So, different pistons, different cranks, different
yeah.
conrod. Now, listening to this thing run, doesn't sound like you've got as hot a camshaft in this.
Right.
Doesn't sound like a solid cam, am I correct?
No,
A hydraulic cam in it?
it's a hydraulic cam.
Because you want it to be drivable, and you don't want to be adjusting the tappets every time you know.
Yeah, we just wanted to be able to drive the car on the street as practical as we could make it, and so that's what's in it, and it just drives fine in traffic.
Yep.
Doesn't overheat, doesn't do anything crazy.
I love the fact, by the way, that it still has Webers. It still has a traditional distributor on there with vacuum advance on it, and
Yes.
is it still running points inside the distributor, or is it gone to electronic ignition?
It's electronic.
Yeah, just so that then it still looks the same, but you just get that easier start on the
And
thing
of
as
course,
well.
you have a bigger radiator and
A real necessity on a Corvette, obviously.
Yes, and an extra fan up
Yep.
there
Yep.
that you can turn on and off if you really start heating at all. And
Oh.
so
It's beautiful. It really is. Well, Rick, as our very worthy Car of the Week winner, again, you get this Maguire's complete kit. This time it's a different one. It's got the hot shine foam, the quick interior detailer, perfect clarity glass cleaner, ultimate wash and wax, hybrid ceramic detailer, and the microfiber towel. Keep this wonderful, wonderful looking 63 Corvette in the beautiful, pristine condition it's in. Mate, thank you so much for bringing it out, and congratulations.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.